All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by the official beer of the program, Johnny Cuba. European roots with a Caribbean soul. It's just how we like it down here. A refreshing German lager in a can. You could pick up a six-pack of Johnny Cuba, your local Sedanos, Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas. That's how you can enjoy the weekend's action, all the college football, the NFL. Make sure you always drink responsibly. And, of course, don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Really pleased now to be joined by our friend. She is no longer here in South Florida because she's killing it up there in Chicago. I see all these clips doing all the football shows. Ruthie Polinsky, formerly NBC6 down here, and now NBC-Chicago. Hello, Ruthie. How are you this morning?
I'm great. So good to see your face. And missing it down there, but also just really grateful all the opportunities that have been presented to me up here. So, it's just part of life. You graduate, you move on, and things have really worked out for me in Chicago so far.
So tell everybody what you're doing. I mean, you're doing a ton of football. You're involved with the Bears and all that. Tell everybody what you're doing. Who misses you here?
Yeah, so I'm doing stuff still for the local news at WMAQ, which is Channel 5 NBC here in Chicago. So I still do sports for them every once in a while. I'll do some fill-in work. And then I'm the host of the Football After Show, which is the Bears 90-minute post-game show on NBC Sports Chicago. So as soon as the game ends, we go on the air and it's streaming, and it's also on NBC Sports Chicago. And I'm joined by Dave Wanstedt, who people in Miami are very familiar with. He's also a former Bears head coach, so he likes to do some stuff. He's local, so he does a lot of stuff with us at NBC. And then also Lance Briggs and Alex Brown, who are two, all-time Bears defensive players. So we have a blast on that show, even though the Bears have been, I guess you could call it, disappointing this year. But we have so much fun, and it's 90 minutes, and it's really consumed by Bears fans, kind of more so than I really anticipated. It's been around forever, and so they asked me to be the host of it once I got here, and it's really worked out well, and I'm just incredibly grateful for the opportunity. We also have a 30-minute show on NBC Sports Chicago every night, Monday through Friday, called Football Night in Chicago. That we kind of rotate hosts. I'm one of the hosts on that show as well. It's 30 minutes, all football show, which is really, really fun to be a part of as well. And then I'm also going to get to do some stuff for the Bulls this year, which is really exciting. The Bulls are broadcast on NBC Sports Chicago, so you might see me popping up on those broadcasts. That's all kind of in the works as of now. So I'm really, really excited about everything that, the city and NBC Chicago has presented to me.
So local sports down here in South Florida on the news, on local news, has been dying for a long time now. It does not it sounds like local news and local sports in Chicago, that there's still a very big chunk dedicated to it.
Yeah, I'm really kind of learning about the market. I think obviously a lot of people around the country know about WGN, which is, this historic, partner. They were with the Cubs forever. And it's kind of—
That's how, as a kid, before we had the Marlins here, the Marlins first began in 1993. So I was 12 years old. Before we had the Marlins, I loved the Cubs because we had WGN, and I got all the Cubs games here. So that was that was the team that I followed.
Yeah. So WGN is still a powerhouse here. They do a nightly sports show on their local channel, which is awesome. And then Fox is partners with the Bears, so they do a lot of Bears content and a lot of sports. But I'll tell you, this city and the local news stations really appreciate how important sports are to this city. This city eats, sleeps, and breathes sports year round. Doesn't matter if they're good, if they're bad. The White Sox were horrendous. They were the top story, all baseball season, even when the Cubs were playing well. It's just been a really unbelievable transition. Obviously, before I was in Miami, I was also in Rhode Island, where I worked in New England. I covered the Patriots. So I've really experienced three completely unique sports cities now that are just so different and all unique in their own special ways. Chicago is very intense. And it's like nothing I've ever experienced before. And the local stations really appreciate that. And they know that, and they know it's important to their viewers and their constituents. So it's been really an honor to be a part of.
how big of a deal right now is Connor Bedard?
Connor Bedard. I mean, listen, the Blackhawks, there are very low expectations for them this year, but the Blackhawks are so they're the lead story right now in the middle of the NFL season. When Connor Bedard does anything, opens his mouth, it's a big deal. And that may die off, as the season kind of rolls on. But right now at the start of hockey season, and again, NBC Sports Chicago, we air the Blackhawks game, so we're really invested. We sent one of our reporters for Channel 5 for the local station to their season opener in Pittsburgh. He interviewed Connor Bedard's dad. He is absolutely electrified this city, and a city that really, needed some Blackhawks love after the last couple of years. It's been disappointing. And so this rebuild just got a nice little kickstart when they won the draft lottery. And Connor Bedard, it's not every year you get a kid like that going number 1 overall. And he's been everything we've expected him to be. And he's just a great kid, and he's fun to get to know. He's literally 18 years old. It's just been a blast. It's been a blast.
My older son, the first few days of the season, what Connor Bedard do tonight? Connor Bedard score yet?
Wow.
On ESPN's opening night last Wednesday, he knew there was a triple header. Are the Blackhawks one of those games?
Cool.
He wanted to see.
Yeah. So
even younger fans on the other side of the country are aware what a big deal Connor Bedard is.
Awesome.
It's really cool. So yeah, hey, that's great. So you're killing it up there. Clearly, you're very happy. Obviously, you're getting married soon. When are we fitting that in? When's this wedding?
Getting married. I know it's totally on the back burner in football season. With my fiance, also works in football, so we are getting married in March in St. Louis, which is where I'm from. I grew up there, as many people know. So that's gonna get planned at some point. No, we have all the big things kind of taken care of, and I think the details will start to kind of. The planning will heat up, I think, right around the time football season's ending. But for now, yeah, getting married. Don't know what it's going to look like or feel like or sound like, but it's going to be great in March. So we're
DJ
excited.
Or band?
Band. I'm a musical family. We came from, I played musical instruments growing up. My sister's a concert violinist, just graduated from Juilliard. I did musical theater growing up. We are a musical family. The band was number 1 priority.
Yep, you have to go band.
Anything else, and so that we're really excited about.
Not that DJs, aren't great, but there's a certain element of class to the wedding when you have a band.
Well, I think so too. And I just think, when you find the right band too, it can make or break a wedding. And we're going to do a DJ after party, so we can get that going too. Love a DJ. But for the main event, the wedding, it felt appropriate to have a band for us.
And you got to make sure, if I can give you a little bit of advice, not that you need it, but if I can give you a little bit of advice, you gotta pay attention to the cocktail hour. The cocktail hour is a big thing. You got to have the good hors d'oeuvres. You got to make sure you have enough hors d'oeuvres, because people talk. And then there's all kinds of chatter about how there wasn't enough food and all that. You got to have a good cocktail hour.
You sound like my wedding planner. Yeah, we are very excited about the cocktail hour. And that's the thing too, right? Because you get out of the ceremony and people want to drink, which means they want to eat. So you got to make sure that everyone's taken care of in the cocktail hour. Very excited about some of the surprises for the cocktail hour. But don't worry. And especially, coming from a Jewish family, we got to have the food is very, very important. Cocktail hour. So that'll be fun.
Good. Excellent. Good to hear all of that stuff. So, all right, let's talk. Are you still able to pay a little bit of attention to our teams here? All right. The Panthers came off of an amazing postseason run. It really was the Panthers and the Heat going on at the same time. Unfortunately, you were gone by them, so you didn't get to experience it, but neither of them won. And it was the greatest postseason experience as a fan that probably I've ever had. It was so amazing. And last night, the Panthers had their home opener, and it was an incredible atmosphere.
Yeah.
It was a real hockey atmosphere. So give me a little bit on how much of attention you're able to pay to the local teams here still.
Well, first of all, I did get to experience the Heat and Panthers in a very fun way by being a fan and not having to work. So that was fun. And like I said, I was not too emotional, leaving Miami just because I had a lot of things here kind of waiting for me, and I was really excited about the opportunities and also being with my fiance again. But I was so excited to be able to sit on my couch and watch these games and like cheer and like, root for them. And obviously, as people know, we get to know these athletes and these coaches and these execs, and you root for them. And it's so fun to be able to kind of like enjoy that and not be like stressed about what am I going to say on TV. So that was really fun for me. And I mean, how can you not pay attention to these teams, right? Like it's interesting. The Heat, and now starting to cover the Bulls a little bit, like they're both in this kind of like run it back, situation, which I think is really interesting. And I got to meet Billy Donovan actually last night.
He's great.
We talked a lot about UD, and also he played at Providence College, which I got to cover before I was in Miami. So there's a lot of like similarities. It feels like a lot of history, a lot of like, just kind of culture things that are similar between the Bulls and the Heat. So it's very reminiscent for me and nostalgic. And I really love that. Obviously, everyone has so much respect for Spo and Pat Riley, like around the country. So it's always coming up, when I say that people, that I came from Miami. So that's really fun. And also, I mean, how can you not pay attention to Jimmy Butler's hair? Like that caught the media waves, that was always, something that media day is always, kind of fun to see what surprise they have in store. So yeah, paying attention. And then the Dolphins, I mean, are they the best team in the NFL right now? Like they might be.
Well,
like
this Sunday night is going to go a long way. Like obviously you keep up with ZASLOW Show 2.0 NFL Power Rankings. And right now the Dolphins are number 2 because I refuse to put them number 1 unless they get a win like this weekend. The fact of the matter is the Dolphins have 5 wins and they're kicking the shit out of teams. But those 5 wins that they have this year, none of those teams have more than 2 wins. Most of them have 1 win. One of them has not won yet this year. And the one team that they lost to, they lost by 4 touchdowns. So this is a major game for the Dolphins this Sunday night, Ruthie.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you want to see this defense prove that they're legit, right? Like that's kind of, I think, where I stand on this team. The offense can outscore anyone, but can you stop people when you really need to? And I think obviously everyone's excited about Jalen Ramsey coming back, but is X healthy? And, there are all these things kind of playing out with this Dolphins defense that I think still leaves a little bit to before you're like, yeah, this is a really perfect team. So I'm excited to see what happens Sunday night. Like I'll get to watch it. I love a noon kickoff, Bears noon kickoff. I'm done by 6, my show's off the air at 4:30. Like, we have, so I love being able to kind of like watch, and especially when the Dolphins are going to get a lot of primetime airtime, I'm always going to root for them. Like they were so good to me and really helped my career. And that was, I'm so happy for Tua and
is Tua the MVP of the league right now?
Tua the MVP of the league right now? Yes. I mean, he's definitely one of the candidates. How could he not be, right? Like, I mean, he's executing that offense at a very, very high level, making historic, numbers and stats. And, everyone, I loved the whole thing that went viral this week about, people calling Tua system QB and McDaniel, wanted to push the podium over, whatever. Like, sure. Like, I think there's some truth to that, but I think like, again, like to McDaniel's point, like you have to have someone that can run it. Right. Like, and obviously Tyreek and Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert and, Achane, like they're obviously going to help him. But he still has to run it. So I think Tua makes a great case for MVP at this point. But Zaz, I mean, Dolphins last year, 1-5, lost 5, 1-3, lost 3. Like, I just want to see, it's still early to me. Like, I just want to see this play out as like, yeah, they are the best team and teams aren't going to quote unquote, like figure them out. Right. Like, how are you going to figure them out when you have these, just everyone's outrunning everyone and it's a track meet every week. But yeah, like go Tua, like go Mike McDaniel. This is fun to watch. It's an exciting brand of football. And that like that city's probably on fire right now watching them.
The system QB stuff is aggravating to me because it's not as if he was a 5th or a 6th round pick and he's thriving.
Right.
He was number 5 overall. He's expected when you draft him number 5 overall to be a franchise quarterback. And matter of fact, until he got hurt his final year in school, he was the consensus #1 overall pick.
Right.
So the idea that a kid who for really the last 2 years in school was the consensus #1 overall pick, and we got to have a conversation about whether or not he's a system quarterback, it's so stupid.
That's fair. It's a good point. Yeah, I think obviously everyone's sitting there seeing him because you saw him struggle immensely early in his career.
Game.
So you kind of you forget that he was you know, the 5th overall pick sometimes maybe. And so I guess that's kind of maybe where that dialogue comes from. Again, I'm not a believer in it. I just I thought that was funny this week. McDaniel wanted to push the podium over.
So what happened with Chase Claypool and Chicago? They traded for him a couple years ago. They sent a 2nd-round pick to Pittsburgh,
which is actually a 1st-round pick in a lot of ways. It was number 32. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a 1st-round pick then.
Okay.
And 2 years later, they move on from him after he does nothing for the Bears, and they move on for him in a swap of 6th and 7th-round picks. That's a major L the Bears took on that trade. What happened with Chase Claypool?
So Chase Claypool came to Chicago to be when they traded for him, they traded such a high pick. They wanted him to save the team. They wanted him to be major focal point of this offense. And he wasn't. And I think that hurt his ego. And I think he wasn't necessarily a great situation in the meeting room, on the practice field. I think you wanted to see him really shine. And then obviously it all kind of spiraled with some of his comments and the way he behaved. And there were a lot of things that happened behind the scenes that, have been reported that I think made sense it really made sense for the Bears to move on from him. And I obviously give Ryan Poles a lot of credit, the GM here in Chicago, for admitting that it didn't work out, because that's a really hard thing for a young GM to do. But to send him to Miami, I think it's a fresh start. You traded a 6th-round pick for him. So
yeah, they traded a 6th for him and a 7th.
A 6th and a 7th. So he's not going there to be a star or a focal point of that offense. Maybe the expectations are a little bit different for him there, and he can kind of take his time and ease his way into what they want him to be there. But everyone talks about how big he is, and he's a specimen of.
There's talk here how they may use him at tight end.
That's interesting, because he really, really struggled to block in a couple of instances here in week 1, especially for the Bears, and really hurt this offense. And I think when they did bench him, the Bears play their best to offensive performances when he wasn't on the field. And listen, I who knows if that's because of him, but I do think that there's something to be said for the fact that a lot of people criticized his effort on the field, his knowledge of the playbook, and just kind of the way that he practiced and performed. There was kind of the diva narrative and just kind of wanting to, when the media asks you, do you think you're being used in the best way to be used, and you sit there and you think about it, you look around and you say, no, that's just not a great message to send. You're not really taking accountability for your own problems. It was really interesting. I was in the locker room that day, and we walk over to Darnell Mooney's locker, who also hasn't really sparked or popped off the stat sheet the way that a lot of people expected him to so far this year. And he takes full accountability for all of his errors and his mistakes. And it's not pointing fingers or blaming the coaching staff or blaming Justin Fields. Like it was just an interesting comparison to put the two side by side. So listen, Chase Claypool, like, wish you the best of luck. And I think it's going to be fun for him to win there. Like it's tough here, like things aren't going well. So go on a team where you're going to win. Maybe they'll use you a little bit to your strengths. And we'll see how that goes.
Are the Dolphins going to win Sunday night?
I think so. Yeah, I do. I think
it's a shootout.
It's got to be, right. I think that, I don't know. I think the Eagles defense is really good. I think but I do think the Eagles have been in some nail biters, like some close ones, obviously coming off a loss to the Jets. Like they're not going to be like they're not going to like take the Dolphins lightly.
They got some injury concerns on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, definitely. And so it'll be interesting to see how that, like, what their game plan is and how they defend these guys that can, like I said, it's a track meet. So I think it's probably going to be high scoring. But I think the Dolphins win.
All right, Ruthie likes the Dolphins in the over. There you go. You heard it right there.
What
Excellent.
what is it? What is the over?
You know what? I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me right this
okay.
second. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot.
Okay.
Really good job out of you, Ruthie. I do want to ask you, you're Jewish, I'm Jewish. You have family in Israel, right? It's a disaster over there right now. The president addressed the nation last night. Is everything okay on your end? You got some thoughts, some feelings? What's going on your end there?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I have a lot of family in Israel, some cousins who I actually grew up with and I'm very close to. It's kind of complicated, but my mom's cousin married an Israeli woman. They raised the family in St. Louis, but the kids grew up in Israel, came up to St. Louis, and we really grew up together, very close, all similar in age. And then after high school, they all went back to Israel, served in the army, and have been there ever since. And it's been everyone's safe for now. It's been a rough couple of weeks for everyone. My cousin's husband was called into the reserves. My cousin's boyfriend also called into the army.
And for people down here who don't understand, when that happens, it's like a major honor. Your family probably, like, they get the call and they run to go be part of it, right?
Yeah, I think there's this level of pride in serving your country there. Something like I don't think people really understand until you see it in person and hear them talk about it. People don't understand how small this piece of land is, and how after the Holocaust, it was so important to have it there for us. And I think I took an unbelievable class my senior year of college at Michigan about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, where I learned about hundreds of years of history between these two sides. And not coincidentally, I then went to Israel on birthright following that course, and kind of saw it with my own eyes. And I think it's really important to say I have a tremendous amount of sympathy and empathy for what the Palestinian people have been through as well. And I think when I sit here and I say Jews need Israel, I'm not saying that I'm anti-Palestinian. I'm it's so complicated and it's so layered, and I'm devastated for all of the lives that have been lost over the course of the last few weeks. What happened to Israel was a planned attack against a certain group of people. And what's happening now is Israel is defending itself. And so I think there is a stark contrast there. What's really been challenging for me, Zaz, and I'm not sure if you can relate to this, you probably can, but just kind of the divisiveness in our country and the way that people are protesting and speaking out, and the propaganda and the misinformation and the difference in narrative. And I think what's also been really scary and hard for me has been, it feels like this is giving anti-Semitism a new voice. And I feel like this is empowering people who maybe have always disliked Jews a reason to come out and voice their dislike for Jews. And so I think that's really scary to me. There are 16 million of us left in the world. We make up less than 2% of the world. And I've never really been more proud to be Jewish. And I've never really been more proud to be marrying a Jew and carry on these Jewish traditions and pass it on and make more Jews. I'm so proud of what our religion and what our people teach each other, and how we talk about tikkun olam and healing the world and making the world a better place. And I plan to carry all those traditions onto my children with a lot of pride and honor, in a way that I maybe didn't feel prior to this, war breaking out. So I pray for peace. I pray for the hostages to come home to their families. I I pray for the war to stop in Palestine, and I want people to live harmoniously. And I pray that Hamas goes away, because they don't want Jewish people to exist. And they don't want a lot of people that are different from them to exist. And I think that's also something that's being lost in this narrative. So thank you for asking. Everyone's safe. I think everyone's really going through a lot of various emotions, and social media makes this really challenging. I think also you want it to be a way to educate people and pass along, facts and real information, when now it's so scary how fast disinformation and misinformation can be spread.
I told a couple of people who reached out to me last week. They're like, Zaslow, we need your voice. It's one of the, Jews who have a voice down here, and we need you to say something. And I've talked about it a little bit on the first few shows I did last week when this started 2 weeks ago, tomorrow, I think it was. And I said, listen, I'm not posting anything on social media about it, because it's a fucking cesspool when you say something about this, and all the responses I'm going to get are going to make me mental. Like I can't do it. Like I'll say these things on my show. I'll have this conversation with you right now, but on Twitter, no, it's not happening. I can't do it.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think I've been sharing a lot on my Instagram just of other people's stories, because my family in Israel, I say, I feel helpless. How can I help you? What can we do? And they say, share our stories, make everyone know what we're going through and what's happening over here. And there's a very, very stark contrast between being Jewish and supporting the Israeli government and their treatment of people in Gaza and their treatment of people in Palestine. Those are two different things.
To be American and not support everything that, this current administration is about.
And I think your Jewish friends, if you're listening to this and you're not Jewish, your Jewish friends are really scared and they're really hurting, and support from non-Jews goes really a long way, I think, in this point. And so just check on them, ask how they're doing. That means a lot. And that's kind of my message, I think, right now. And I pray for all of this to stop, but I don't know how it ever will.
Yeah. Good job, Ruthie. Thank you for all of that right there. I appreciate it. You look and sound like you're doing great. We'll have you on again soon. I hope everybody enjoyed hearing from you today. You want to say something to all your fans down here? Go ahead.
I love you. I miss you. You helped get me here. And I'm really, really grateful for the memories and all the Miami. And I'm coming to Miami for my bachelorette. So
okay. What are we doing? A little LeBear? Where are we going? What are we doing?
It's actually, I'm so excited. So we're actually renting a house in North Miami instead of doing the South. I kind of did the whole South beat, we're good. So I'm renting a house with a pool. We're on an inlet. And we're going to do a boat day. We're going to do a pool day. We'll go to the clubs.
Okay.
TBD which ones, but
okay. All right.
But yeah, so it'll be fun. It's going to be, obviously that place, that's where I met my fiance. It's where, I have a lot of fond memories there, and, can't wait to come back when I'm coming in December, when it's going to be real cold up here. But I do love fall. I forgot how much I love fall, and it's chilly. I'm wearing a sweater and a vest today. It's kind of fun. But in December, I'll be ready to come to Miami. So we'll be there with bells on.
Awesome. Great job, Ruthie. Thank you. Really good catching up with you.
Good to see you, Zaz. Thanks for having me.